Memory skill.
Okay, so we are recording? Okay, I'll wait for you to get to your seat and we'll get started, okay? Okay, everyone, the recording starts, so please turn your microphones on and pull them forward and we'll start the meeting. Welcome to the July 12th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Ms. Fode, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Screbutanis?
Here.
Mr. Khan?
Here.
Mr. McPartlin?
Here.
Mr. Darpino?
Here.
Mr. Oster?
Here.
Ms. Gold? Sorry.
Present.
And Chairman Walsh.
Here, thank you. Okay, we have the approval of the minutes from the June 7th, 2021 meeting that were included in the packet and posted online. I'll make a motion that we approve the June 7th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oster. Any corrections, changes?
One small typo. Line 167. Chairman Walsh thanked Ms. Gold for her work. The ED isn't needed.
Okay.
Minor spelling.
Does anybody else have any? I have no changes personally. Anybody else have anything? I think that's straightforward, so we can just do a friendly change on that. Seeing or hearing no other changes, all those in favor of approving the minutes from June 7th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none opposed, the June 7th meeting minutes are approved as slightly modified. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll go right to privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to be heard during privilege of the floor? Mr. Henry, did you receive any emails or notifications?
No, we did not.
Okay, no communications received. No one wants to be heard during privilege of the floor, so we will close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business tonight. Looks like we're gonna have a quick meeting, maybe. And we have no new business tonight.
Talking to you.
No new business tonight. So we'll move right to discussion items. We have one discussion item on the agenda, and that's 2147 Eastern Parkway Mixed-Use Building. That's the medical professional office and apartments requiring a special use permit. We have Mr. D'Arpino, the project lead, and we have Mr. Lisi, the applicant, present. So we're going to just open up discussion. And if you want to get started, Dave?
Sure. So since our last meeting, the Conservation Advisory Council met and reviewed the plans. They did come up with 5 recommendations for their negative declaration on the seeker. I'll quickly summarize those. Number 1, developer to add at least 4 white or red oaks similarly sized street trees in the public right of way, and that would be included in the landscaping plan that needs to be submitted. Number 2 is a facade and roof lines need to be broken up to mitigate the length and height of the building. That's already something that's in progress. The Architecture Review Board has reviewed that. Number 3 is larger windows above the porch should be installed to add light and add interest to the middle of the building. Again, that's another feature that the architect is working on that was discussed previously. Number 4 is solar should be incorporated into the property, as well as any green energy practices and pesticide-free lawn maintenance. I think that's an item that we should discuss with the developer while he's here. And then no HVAC shall be allowed on the roof, and I believe that is not the case with these. It is a gabled roof, and these are independent roof systems, so number 5 currently has been addressed.
Okay. Mr. Lisi, do you mind approaching the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we'll...
Lou Lisi, 1131 Mohegan Road, Niskayuna, New York.
Okay, thank you. So those were the recommendations from the Conservation Advisory Council, and that was our goal tonight, was to discuss that input. So maybe we'll just take them one at a time. You have the trees seems to be reasonable. We wanted to make sure, I believe their comment was to make sure that the trees fit the pre-existing trees. So,
Yeah.
All right. Facade and roof line broken up to mitigate the length and height. I mean, it's
Which we're working on
You-
now.
a work in progress.
We have that comment, the architect's making those
All
changes.
right. How about the larger windows above the porch?
The larger windows, that's going to be tenant space. It doesn't really go into a hallway. So it's going to be part of one of the units. So one side unit will be a little bit larger than the other side to pick up that space that's in the, would have been like a hallway.
Right.
So putting large windows there, that's not an issue.
So that, I think and David, you can help me out here, but the goal was just to break up that center. We have some renderings over there to break it up, but it would be one apartment, but not another. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So the way this lays out, there's no corridors between the two units that go front to back. So the windows here, that might be a bedroom, but I don't know what that's going to be yet from the standpoint of the actual layout of the actual unit. So one side will have a larger unit than the other side on front and back.
All right. And as far as, again, just help me out here. So if those two, the windows above the doorway, if they were, looking to be slightly different to break that up, would it hurt? If that
It won't be centered though.
wouldn't be centered? Oh, because of the interior where the wall.
Correct. So if you make that window larger, it's going to be more, like for example, this window here to be a double window to the left. So it's not going to be lined up with the peak of the roof. Now, could you put one picture window there? It's still going to be off center.
All right.
So I think if we're staying with a facade that's symmetrical, we want to keep it symmetrical.
Correct. That's
So
what I'm
without
trying to do.
seeing the floor plans, I think that center bay is something that the Architecture Review Board and the CAC have both commented on. So I think it's a work in progress.
Right.
See what the floor plans look
Yeah.
like, whether that becomes a larger window or there's more articulation with the facade being recessed and a portico.
got
You
you.
don't want to interrupt the roof lines too much in that center bay because you actually got the hip gables on the two ends
Correct.
with the chimneys that are not shown on, I think, on that elevation.
Right.
But my preference would be to keep it symmetrical and work with the floor plan that's there and see what becomes of the next iteration.
Right. Now, if we can make a floor plan that divides that window, but it's going to be kind of funky the way it's
Yeah.
going to lay out. That's the only problem.
All right.
Then you have a window that's justified against the wall
Exactly.
in a room that doesn't.
It's just,
I don't think that's
it's
really
just stuck in the corner of the room.
Yep.
Correct.
But have you finalized the floor plans yet?
Well, we're doing those now to incorporate the comments with the roof that comes down. So
Okay, yeah,
say
so-
next meeting the floor plan will be there.
So we'll see another, I think
Yeah.
until we can see a complete picture on the outside, we're not going to, which
Yeah,
includes the broken up roof. Because even that picture we don't have in the
The
package,
side-
right?
If you look at the side, picture this, there'll be a hallway between each unit on the east and west side of the building, and that's your emergency access.
Mhm.
So that leaves an elevator which is able to open up on either floor, right? So there's 4 units per floor. So when the elevator comes up, you'll come out the elevator and you'll see door number 1, number 2, and the back side will open up for 3 and 4. So there is no hallways on the front and the rear. The hallway for access for emergency purposes, fire, is on the sides. Sometimes they're in the front, so you go down the stairs out the front, but these will be side loaded, these exits. So every unit on the second and third floor takes up the entire space for living space.
So actually from a stairway perspective, the east and west sides of the building or the north and south sides are disconnected.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you have more living space on the front and the rear versus the sides.
All right.
Yeah. But we'll get the design of the layout and we'll just look at it and we'll work around that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we have to work through is we're going to have to make a recommendation to the town board. So what do we include as conditions if it's still a work in progress? If the town board grants a special use permit, it'll come back to us and we can still work through those during, the final design and site plan, But we need to evaluate at least the feedback that we've been getting. Solar should be incorporated in the property as well as any green energy practices. Pesticide-free lawn maintenance. What do you think?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, well, I think by solar should be incorporated, is there, I guess, an opportunity for anything green,
I'm not going to put solars on the roof of this building. It'll look awful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, it'd be nice, but I don't know if it works with design. I guess I would leave that to the Architectural Review Board for their input and Dave,
A couple questions. Well, if I agree that I wouldn't put it on this building roof or the sides. Maybe the carport structure could have some solar panels, but you'd have to do an evaluation of
Exactly.
what is at square area going to give you towards the benefit?
Right.
And I mean, I know that I don't work with it often, but there has been some advances with it. And if you have any experience with it, then that's great. And then the other thing is with the landscaping plan, you may or may not want grass. You might want to do something that's very low maintenance where you just do plantings and, they just have to be maintained once a
Yeah.
month. So
Well, I mean, we're gonna have some green space in the rear, obviously. I think
Right.
there'll be grass back there, but out in the front.
So green energy practices, I mean, there's other things, and just throw one out there that we've been talking about, and that's electric charging stations. You think there's a need for any charging station?
I think I would do that there.
I mean, that would be a good,
Yeah.
I think, a good compromise,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because
would
at
do
least
that.
you're still promoting, EVs
Right.
for any of the tenants,
I would definitely do that, for sure.
Right.
What's your heating and cooling systems for the apartment? Can you do
Forest hot air. Each unit will have their own furnace and AC unit.
Not like a mini split, are you just
No.
gonna, no, okay.
No,
I was trying to grab a hold of that, okay.
yeah.
Each unit will pay its own way?
I'm sorry?
Each unit will be paying its
Yes,
own?
yes. There'll be a room in every unit that has their own heating and cooling system.
Okay, so that's number 5. So there's no rooftop based on the
No.
design. So
No,
there's
we've
no.
never discussed the
Yep.
rooftop unit.
Yep, just
Have
my,
we,
Yeah, sorry.
have we ever required before for going back to solar, like,
Yeah.
that, like, I've never
So-
seen that before.
Right, so I found that interesting actually when I was reading over, so maybe
Yeah.
we can talk about it for a
Yeah.
minute. I think overall, I think green and climate friendly practices should, but I think it needs to be a bigger than a case by case. I think either we need to have some kind of I don't want to say the word policy, but I just did. I think we need to have at least some kind of a checklist or some kind of something that makes it a specific dialogue on a specific property
Right.
if we're going to do that, but there's got to be some guidelines.
I agree. And that's why I threw out the charging stations.
Right,
That
and that's
could
when
be,
we've
that could be a
done-
compromise,
Right. You also gotta remember, you can add these things to a building, the rent is not gonna go up accordingly.
Hmm.
So the cost of construction now gets to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
when You start adding all these things in.
Yeah, but you would evaluate, the charging station or
No,
two,
charge it. I think that's a good idea. That's
especially for the commercial people,
absolutely, especially if there's seniors living here.
yeah, or a
Yeah.
resident, yeah.
Yep.
They want to
Right.
use it at night if it's available, a couple of them, that would be handy.
So coming back to Mr. Scribbins' comment, and this would be an aspect of, taking the right step towards climate. The units that are going to burn natural gas for heat,
Yes,
hot water,
yes.
have you looked into using electricity instead? The units that do it electrically? At least for the hot water, I mean, there's electric systems.
Right, but I've always assumed that that's more expensive than natural gas.
At least maybe look into it because, the lesser the consumption of natural gas in any specific apartment, it's still heading in the right direction. It's not complete. but it's still
I
heading in the right
understand that,
direction.
but again, rents are driven on utility costs.
I agree. All I'm saying is,
Yeah.
it's probably worthwhile to at least maybe make
Yeah.
a specific assessment as to whether those units might be better. And you could bill it that way too. If you got climate friendly electricity, then folks will like that.
You've been in the rental business? I know Patrick.
Well, I'm not talking about, you're talking in the past tense. I was talking in the future tense.
These are units that I think are going to be used by seniors. And they're always conscious of their revenue, of what they have to spend. We can look at it. I just don't know it's cost prohibitive to do that.
All right, so I think we've kind of worked through the suggestions. My view is that, hey, you're good at trees, it's a work in progress with the Architectural Review Board, and the interior design is important, whether there's any opportunity for modifying the windows. It sounds like there may not be. We're not too happy about the solar, but charging stations might be a possibility. And HVAC is not to worry about it because there's no units on the roof, so. The next thing is town board, I believe, at their, you have the public hearing, I believe, at the end of the
27th.
month. Yeah,
According to this, it
Yeah.
says 27.
yeah, so it's already scheduled. And then once, town board has their public hearing, we get some input there, we'll be ready to make a recommendation. We're not going to do that tonight because we want to work through a couple of these things. But we're close, especially after talking about these items, about making a recommendation at town board. Unless something comes up during the public hearing that, we're not aware of, but, as you know, our public hearing, we had no speakers. We had one letter supporting the project, but no speakers against.
That's a first for me.
Does the,
I recall I recall that at the meeting on Friday, I don't think the public hearing thought they were going to wait until they heard from you folks.
No,
I don't think it's in July. I think it's going to,
no, I think it's, I talked to Clark and Laura today, and I think the way it worked at the meeting is the public hearing is a go, but there was not going to be a resolution on the same night approving a special use permit until we heard from the public and we worked through the Conservation Advisory Council comments, because this is the first that the applicant has seen them, and first time that we've had an opportunity to discuss them.
because we're trying to avoid that, public hearings and
Correct, and having,
a resolution the same night.
especially something like this, that, it's I guess it could be a potentially significant change to the neighborhood, so we're waiting to hear what the public has to say to town board public hearing. All right. All right.
Okay, one last one, if you don't mind. Is the front and back on two sides of the building going to look exactly the same from the outside?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, for complete, okay, that's fine. I'll take your word for it. I was going to say for completeness, it might be good to include all four in our next package, but that's fine if they're going to be the same to understand.
So I guess the next question is, do we, just continue working forward and wait before we make a recommendation? So we get a little bit more work with the Architectural Review Board? Is that kind of where we're at from a scheduler standpoint? I mean, you have any concerns, Mr. Lisi?
I don't know why we have to wait, but
I mean, we could have a tentative resolution for our next meeting, which is July 26th, if we get some further information. And if not, if it isn't perfect, again, it's only a recommendation, not only is important
yeah,
for the special use permit,
Yeah.
you still have to come back for site plan, but a lot of times, if there's something that's significant, we can include it in the town board's resolution to make sure that it takes place as a condition of their approval.
Right.
But I don't see anything here that
we had nobody.
we have any disagreement on or
in
anything.
opposition of the project that came to the public hearing.
Yeah.
What I mean.
Yeah, is that,
I'm comfortable with that.
yeah, all right, all right,
Just thinking ahead to site plan, I know we discussed
good point, thank you.
potential rearranging some parking, so you've got, yeah, you saw that, Lou? What'd you
This
think
was
of
the
that one?
first plan that I wanted to submit, and my MJ talked me out of it, saying that it would affect my curb cuts. And so he explained that to me. I didn't know if that was, I just assumed that was correct, but this is the first plan that I had submitted.
Huh.
I pushed the building all the way to the right.
Oh.
Um,
One
Yes, yep,
two-way access, and
Correct.
one-way access.
correct. So I am okay with this, because this is what I originally had designed.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about that. And I thank you, I almost forgot.
Yeah, I had
We
to
had those,
bring it
we
up.
put those out and I just talked to Mr. Lisi about it. So there was 3 suggestions, well, they were thoughts, I guess we call it, from the county. The first 2, if you have them in your packet there, and there's one, first 2 available. The first one doesn't show a lot of green space parking up against the building. When we talked about this one, I think Clark, Laura, and I met last Friday, kind of reviewed these. We thought that there was no benefit to that one because, the green space that we were encouraging for the apartment residents, And if you look at the second one to the right on the page with 2 of them, we're also, again, a lack of green space there behind the building. And we weren't, I guess, too excited about that one, but we did kind of perk up a little bit with the third proposal. The advantage there, we thought, was, the parking for the commercial portion of the building, mixed-use building. They'd be able to park with a handicap spot there and be able to pick up the sidewalk and walk right into the front door versus being all spread out, kind of focuses the parking. And the other thing I liked about this one is that where the trash is shown, the trash enclosure, a truck could come in and pick that up, back up, and then continue on its way right out and around and out. Whereas if you look at some of the other ones, it looks like it'd be more difficult to incorporate it. Maybe it looked like you had to do like a double maneuver in order to pick it up and move it around. So you're going to go back and take a look at this to see if
It does work this way.
it does
I
work.
know that for a fact, 'cause that's the way it was initially was designed. So I can just give you the sketch that I had. I had 2 sketches to pick from, and
Well, what does the board think of the
Whatever you guys want,
number
whatever you
3
guys
from the
prefer.
county? See any issues with that?
Is it the county like the third one?
Those were just 3 suggestions, their thoughts. So I don't think we've gotten a written referral from them that says, It was just suggestions, is the way I viewed it.
So we capture the bump out as green space. That's the theory.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why number 3, I liked, you
Yeah,
know, because of the bump out, and it looked like it actually has an opportunity to possibly increase the green space.
Yeah, and that also faces another parking lot, which is the.
And there's a parking lot on the left of the building, on to the left of this site.
Where would the enclosed parking lot be in the third one, the one that's on the page by itself?
Which one's that?
This one.
The trash, it's over here. The trash.
No, this is right. You were gonna cover the tenant's garage, right?
Yes,
That would still be along the back, right?
still along the back.
So you're still gonna have, so you're not gonna have a longer canopy?
Yeah.
On the back.
That'd be the same canopy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that's kind of details that you'd have to just review
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
your engineering firm, you know, see, you know, the number of spots, how it works out. And so again, I look at it as a work in progress because, you know, until they approve the special use permit and comes back to us, we can still hone in on what works best for the site. But this seems like a reasonable suggestion.
So I can provide that to Clark, the actual diagram that we had initially.
Yep.
I can send it over to Clark this week.
And then we can take a look. Anybody have any thoughts on it? Does it seem like there's any problems with this? You know, sometimes we, you know, say it looks good and then.
I mean, the main thing is it's now an asymmetric driveway width, right? That's really what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
My one thought is that tenants usually like the parking as close to their part of the building as possible.
But I don't think this parking layout changes from that because we still got the whole rear is parking, which you have here. You might get some parking spaces on the left side of the building for the tenants that live downstairs. But, you know, the only bad side of this is that it puts parking against the one unit, which is the downstairs left side unit.
Yeah.
That's the only issue I see with this.
And the opposite units have no parking.
No
next to them,
parking.
So they're
Yeah.
quieter.
Exactly. So, yeah, so kind of, I'm okay with this.
Plus, if it's, most of that parking on the left-hand side is going to be reserved for commercial space, right?
Correct.
It's going to be some, if you take the total count of the apartments, there might be some in the back,
Correct.
but that would be it.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the advantage of what the third one presents. I think from a tenant's perspective, you would like all those apartments to kind of be similar relative to cars facing them, right?
Oh, Mr. Lisi just saw this today, right? I mean,
Just saw it today.
I know that you may have had
Yeah.
a similar design early on, but I say let them, you know, take a look at, evaluate, and, you know, it's a work in progress also, right? Great thing to do.
The only thing, it has this, well, I'll look at, because it has this sidewalk, which is close to that apartment that had green around that sidewalk area. But I'd have to look at this.
Okay. All right, anything else on this subject? Questions for Mr. Lisi?
Are the tenants going to have assigned parking?
Yes,
Okay,
they'll have their
that should
own.
help some.
Yep.
Yeah, and we don't know what kind of business might be there, whether they would have after, you know, later hours or not, right?
On the first floor?
Yeah.
Don't know.
You don't know, so, you know, so you wouldn't want to have the commercial parking taken by residents, so you want.
Right, I would think that downstairs would be some type of practice that would be conducive to seniors. Some type of use for seniors.
Yeah, just in terms of where the spot's going to be, is there anything on the streetscape? It's kind of hard to see that all would affected by the fact of being like across from the synagogue and then maybe slightly off from, like, is that going to affect it in any way?
And
Like,
like-
I can't quite
I
visualize.
just
it
took a ride through there, and I'll be honest with you, I
Yeah.
didn't see anything, but, you know, I didn't sit and look across the
actual
street.
Synagogue parking is looking at the synagogue to the left, so
Yeah.
it would probably almost line up with that arrow
Okay,
on the right hand side, I believe, because I think it doesn't go as far as the Call Banker building does.
okay.
So this may line up with the synagogue.
All right. So what I heard is we'll still work on the conditions with a tentative resolution recommending the town board grant the special use permit, and we'll have that tentative resolution for next meeting. And if there's things that we can work through, you know, again, based on the approval from the town board, we'll just keep working through those. If there's any of you here, David, or anybody thinks that are important that we carry forward for the town board, we can also do that. So we'll work on the resolution and get it out. And everybody take a look at it before the next meeting.
Yeah, that was good.
All right?
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
No,
Good
thank
night.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. that brings us to, that was it for discussion items tonight. So we have some reports and discussions, of course. And first is the Historic Preservation Town Code, and that's also Mr. DiArpino. And I know we had a quick email, I don't know if you saw the email late in the day today or not.
I did. So this is version 4, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I think it's very good. I think it captures everything that we're looking to do. I know Dr. Brennan's here. You want to speak up on behalf of anything?
Yeah, I'll just mention, well, is that pretty much the comments from the last discussion we had were incorporated. I reviewed it again today, and one of my comments was I was concerned about being committed on any type of plaques or anything because we don't have a funding source yet identified. So I think they're important, but until that's worked out, we have to kind of word it until we come through, budget and whether the homeowner pays, whether,
We'll be eligible.
So that was a change I suggested, that it be the same as for the residential properties for any of the areas, and that was a change that was made. I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at that. I can go over it. It was number 5. Let's see, right at the end. So that would be page 4. Top of page 4, it said each site or historic district added to the town register or historic places will receive a historic road marker acknowledging its history and placement on the register. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the old one. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the online one. I printed
yeah. The new one says it will be eligible to receive.
yeah, it will be eligible, right?
Yeah.
Until we figure out, how to do that. Just try to be safe. And that's really the only change.
Which number is that?
Yeah,
So we
so,
don't have this.
no,
It's not in the packet.
it's not in the
Yeah.
packet. It was a work in progress today. So basically, it says will receive a plastic, and it says saying will receive, will be eligible,
Eligible to receive.
just like it does for
Okay,
the
on
other
the
ones,
first
until we figure out how to do that, So, so if it's a private residence, if they, want to buy it, they can buy it. If the town board sets policy where, they are going to provide those, leave it worded that way so the town board has the opportunity to hone in how they want to do it. I guess that was my thought. What do you think? Sound good?
That's fine for now, yeah.
I had made one suggestion that was picked up in one place and not in the other. And it's specific really to the last definition on historic code, where second to last sentence reads, property owners on the historic registry. And I would propose it should be owners of property because it's not the owners that are going on the register, it's the properties.
I agree. That was a good suggestion.
Yeah, I missed that.
So you wanted to say the property owners or
The owners of properties on,
the owners of property, okay.
because it's the properties that are going to get listed. The owners can change over the years, but the properties, once they're on, presumably will be staying on. And that's my only concern, since this does allow for other people to nominate properties to be added. As long as this is carrots and not sticks, I'm okay with that. But if we start to put real sticks into this, real requirements, then to me, there needs to be either a way for the property owner who did not consent in the first place to either be grandfathered to not have to comply with that, or for there to be a way to get the property deregistered. We're not there now, but it's something that I think should be considered sooner rather than later.
There really are no carrots or sticks in this.
I know, but the intent is for there to be at least the carrot.
Yeah,
Get it
okay.
registered and maybe help it become eligible for some funding of other sources other than the homeowners or the property owners.
Well, that would require more changes to the code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm just saying,
But at any rate,
When we
I'm
get
happy
here,
I'm happy to
something
make
to
that,
consider.
that's not a problem. Yeah. The one thing that's still up in the air, I mentioned it to you in the email, I found out last Friday at the Economic Development meeting that the CAC had some recommendations for changes with regard to the demolition section of the document. Unfortunately, I haven't seen what those changes are yet. Although my understanding is that they want to put a little more teeth into that section, or they would like to see if there's a way to put a little more teeth into that section. Instead of a 30-day hold on demolition of a house that's on the historic register list, that the period be longer, maybe 6 months. And the section would also require a good faith effort on the part of both the developer and the town board or the town preservation committee to try to reach some sort of a compromise or some sort of an understanding about how it might be possible to preserve the building. Whether raising funds or some other method. At any rate, I haven't seen the wording that they're suggesting, but that is one other area that might change a little bit. We talked a little bit about this last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And I don't know how the board here feels about trying to strengthen that section. It really is the weakest part of this document, and it gives a month's time if somebody wants a demolition permit. It gives a month's time to do some sort of negotiation. And you think it'd be worth trying to extend that to give more time and be more direct about saying that we need to have some sort of an effort, a good faith resolution to the issue.
What about extending the secondary time period? You have the 30 days and then and if there's something that you want to investigate more, there's 14. And then what about extending that so you don't have people indefinitely being put on hold? There should be something that kind of starts the additional process.
And of course,
I'm open to anything. Yeah.
I raised this at the committee meeting. There's legal issues here about
Yes, there are.
taking, you can't touch this house until we say you can, even though I own it. We've got some legal restrictions that I think we have to be cognizant of.
And as I've tried to point out in the past, I think the town building inspector can be compelled to issue the permit if somebody else, like the county health department, says the structure is unsafe, it's vermin infested, it's a threat to the neighborhood health. I think they can compel the town to issue the demolition permit. And this doesn't address that at all. I might be wrong on that, but I
Oh, I
think I'm
thought
right.
it does. I thought it says that if there's a situation about an imminent danger to the health and safety, they have to give.
In the opinion of the building department.
Okay.
Yeah, we had
And
this-
I'm saying, I think they can be compelled, whether they agree with it or not. I think
Okay.
the building department can be compelled to issue the permit. And that's a legal issue. I'm not the expert, but I think it's something that has to be checked out.
We had that discussion, I guess, last time, and I think with Laura, the comment from Ms. Robertson was that no matter what happens, whether it be the county or some other entity, it's going to come through that office no matter what, and that's where, the building inspector, should make the decision, because they don't typically go around the town, they go through the town for anything like that. So,
But you're missing the point.
And I'd leave it up to the legal
right.
department to sort of work that out.
Oh,
and
Mr.
decide
Briggs
what the
is
proper language.
Hearing the concern. The other thing was, Mr. Henry, did you attend the Conservation Advisory Council?
Yeah, I did.
Will they be writing down what their suggestions are? Or
I don't believe any actual text has been drafted yet.
is that their
That might be the
plan?
next step.
Okay, could you carry that as an open item with that committee? And if they provide that in writing, then we can take a look at it and then incorporate it if we feel it's reasonable. And then the next step, as we talked about, was having Mr. Briggs or the deputy town attorney to take a look at it. And if everybody feels it's, suitable from a legal standpoint, then we could move it on to the town board. Or actually not move it on. I think we talked about having a public hearing.
Yeah.
So one point I want to make tonight, and I think this is the subject is the comment I'm going to make maybe beyond the scope of the ordinance, is that ultimately, one thing we want to consider is to avail homeowners of the New York State Homeowners Historic Credit. Dave, have you ever worked with this?
A few times.
It's okay. So it's a two-part test. So it's got to be either a federal register or a historic district. So, this is an incremental conversation. What we can allow people, if they start doing substantial rehabilitation on their house, they're going to get a 20% credit towards their income tax. State tax liability.
Mm-hmm.
So, imagine we start to create districts so that homeowners that want to do substantial rehab can avail themselves of this program, which is rich and meaningful. So we want to figure out some hook. Ultimately, that would be a goal we should consider to have, rather than have isolated buildings, can we start to assemble them and encourage homeowners? Grand Boulevard, I think that's a great example. Dean Street, Regent Street, all these streets which are historically significant, that we can create a district without, significant, it's only carrot, that's not stick, but so that homeowners can get this tax benefit, which is as of right, if they're in a district. So we don't want to leave that on the table. We have to find some hook or device to get there, because ultimately this is nice, but wouldn't we want that benefit to be available to homeowners?
Right. Does that fall under the portion where it says, the town register of historic places, whether it be a neighborhood or whether it be,
I think what the SHPO requires is district. So we have to, what I'll ask, I'll look into how to define district. Again, if we have isolated buildings, 1 and 3 and 5, is that enough? I don't know how to define a district. So I think it's something to pursue, because why not give them, that's the carrot, and no stick is only an upside, so that when Dave wants to blow out his roof, he can get a tax benefit on his beautiful home. It's an example, right? So.
Well, my assumption has been that getting on the town's register would help get on the state and or federal.
I'm
It would be
assuming,
an initial step.
I just don't know I don't know how they define certified
No.
historic district. It's an or. It's an or test. It's either federal or a historic district. So
And-
what qualifies as historic district? I'll look into that and report back to the board.
Great.
But it's been a few years
Yeah.
since I've read that.
I think we envisioned this as sort of a first step, and there
Yeah,
were going to be
good.
incrementals to come on after.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
absolutely.
Ultimately, we want that goal in place. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we want to we don't want to leave it on the table.
I'm concerned about the 49-year-old threshold. I presume that was intended to protect the Schaefer properties, the Schaefer homes, but that's a very low threshold.
It's a fairly common threshold used, and it is a low threshold, which means that the vast majority of houses that were 52 years old, somebody wanted to demolish them, there'd be no reason to argue that they were historical in any way. Unless there was a prominent person who built the house, or a particular architectural design that was a part of that house with something unique, or something along those lines. But it's a fairly often used number. That 50 years is the difference between new and old, new and historic, which makes all of us historic, I guess.
Last time I did research, it was actually a higher number.
Well, at any rate,
That goes
I'm not married to
back
that
to
number either.
Ingersoll.
If you want to make it 57, I don't care, but.
Yeah, and if so, Ms. Gold, if you know of
Ingersoll on that.
a document that states an updated revision to how many years old it should be or shouldn't be, you could pass that on to Dr. Brennan. Will.
Yeah, I think it'll be
Take a look at it.
important to have a basis for whatever number gets used there, whether it's preponderance and other historical definitions or something else. And to the point Mr. Scrivener is making, I understand we want to do this incrementally, but, what if there's really just an incremental amount of work to be done to incorporate the concept of a district into what we have here? It's probably at least worth looking into it.
Fine to do it right now. I'm just saying this was meant as a start. If we're going to add that
Yeah, but then,
Obviously,
we're all
we don't
excited
have
about
any
all the things
historic
that,
districts in town right now.
yeah. We're all excited about all the things that can be done with it, and I think if there's some near-term close opportunities, it would be good.
Yeah.
Coming back to the demolition thing, I think the key intent there is really, a developer owns a home, that home is greater than 49 years old. They'd like to get demolition going, but the town would like to say, hang on for a second, let's look into it a little bit, right? And so the key issues there really is, number one, they're the owner, right? That's the legal point Mr. Briggs is making. But the town wants to at least give it a quote unquote fair shake, but the burden of work is actually on the commission, right?
Yeah.
Because they would, and so the question is, do they have enough time to make an assessment in a situation where the home may be of the building may be of some historic significance, right? Because Mr. Briggs, your comment kind of already exists even within 30 days and 14 days, right?
Right.
So extending or lowering those time limits is not the issue. The issue is whether they can be in there in the first place.
I think that there's a reasonable basis for some time period.
Okay.
Just a question of, I mean, the process in the building department doesn't happen overnight anyway. So
Right.
Laura mentioned that 30 days is a quick turnaround for a major demolition rebuild through the building department. So, but when we start talking about 6 months, that's getting to be out there.
Where did the
But it
30
was
and
a
14
season
come
three
from?
cases.
I think it came from Clifton Park.
Okay.
And maybe Malta also. They,
Okay.
again, I found it in other codes.
And have either of them been to court yet?
I don't know.
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't either, that's why I asked the question.
So
I-
the,
I would think 30 days is not unreasonable.
I don't think 30 days is unreasonable. I think, I think having a total of 44 days to do work to make an assessment
Mhm.
could be challenging for this commission and whatever help they would need from the planning department. So that's why I like Mr. Oster's idea about, I think, item number 2 in the 14 days, right, would inevitably happen when it's not a simple issue, right? And so the question is that, should that be 14 or should it be 30? I don't think it should be any more than 30, an
Maybe,
additional 30.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me, it's also like, what is, I mean, again, what's reasonable? I mean, it doesn't to me seem reasonable to make people wait past 30 days if you have nothing. And you're like, we might find something, and like, it's when you actually can articulate that there could be something, then what comes legal, like what is then reasonable after that? So that's, again, I'm not even wedded to adding on to it. I'm just, to me, it just seems unfair that if you have nothing, you should have to wait more than 30
yeah, I think the
days.
30 days just means you're
Yeah.
going to hit a meeting, right? So
Right,
within a month period, hopefully. Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah, the 30 days could turn into 5.
Yeah, no, understood, yeah, but
Yeah.
we-
But if it's a challenge, and
Yeah.
then, so even if it's day 29, you can request an additional, 14 days. to-
I mean, item number 3 basically is the clock, right? If the commission does nothing and the clock runs out in 30 days.
Yep.
Right? But the commission could make a negative declaration prior to that, right?
I'm happy with the 30 days.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think the way it was written here was not too,
I'm okay with it because you got the 14-day contingency there in case there is a problem, so.
Well, I'd still like to see what the CAC, what they suggest at any rate.
Yeah, Clark will carry that and we'll see if we can get something in writing from the Conservation Advisory Council. Mr. Gregory Tennis will give us some input. And hopefully we get that and then we'll pass it on to legal. And if legal says, reasonable, then we'll have a call for our public hearing. So looks like we're not ready to do that. We'll get some more information.
yeah, I'm
Keep your eyes
comfortable-
out for draft 5.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the 49 years as far as a watermark for the threshold. It gets you to 1972. That picks up mid-century development houses, covers a lot of the colonial revivals that get up to that period. Into the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there isn't really a defined architectural style that's really been classified. So we're just, maybe contemporary architecture, some stuff in there. I think building off what Dr. Brennan said, a house maybe after 1972 was built by someone of significance. And that's what would lead to maybe that building being listed on the register as opposed to being an architectural style. So there's other contributing factors that could be there. But right now, as of 1972, I think there's quite a bit of inventory in town that could be eligible. So I know with historic cars and insurance, I think the threshold is around 50 years. So there's probably some other things that you can compare it to that would be similar
For classic cars, yes.
for classic cars. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, so much is based upon the fact of whether we're not just pulling this out of thin air, if it's just based upon some other criteria and other municipalities doing something very similar and having them not be challenged and, that.
I know Rye, New York, has this 10-month or up to 10 months potential waiting period. Now, whether they've been challenged on that, I don't know.
That removes basically a building season
Yeah,
Yeah,
for residential
that
property.
seems extreme to me.
That's
Yeah,
a long, long
sounds-
time.
Yeah,
I would not be comfortable with that.
I'm with you.
oh, I'm not sure I am either, but I'm just saying that there are municipalities out there with these long waiting periods. Whether they've been challenged in court, I have no idea.
All right, so we'll get some more input, and looks like potentially Rev 5 coming. And then we'll ask Mr. Briggs to take a look at it and give us any feedback. And so we won't call for a public hearing. We'll wait for one more round, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your effort, we appreciate it.
Incorporate your thing in there.
All right, that brings us, well, we'll continue on reports. Planning Department updates. Let's see if Mr. Henry has anything he'd like to share with us.
Nothing too much, just Laura wanted to report the Target project, the pickup parking spaces. We have been in contact with their representatives. They are working on a revised proposal that would reduce the number of pickup spaces and reduce the number of signs or the size of the signs. So their next job is to resubmit based on planning board feedback at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Do you know what number you're thinking?
No, I
To get
don't
to?
know anything about it, just that we talked to them and asked them if they would be ready for this meeting, and they said, no,
Yeah.
they're still
and
working.
they didn't commit to resubmitting. They committed to going back to.
And talking.
And talking, so they still might
Yes.
say, no, we want what we want, so. And then we'll have to make the decision whether 24 spots, right?
24.
Yeah, is too much or not enough. And I haven't had an opportunity to get up to Saratoga to take a look at that store yet. I don't know if anybody else has. But they told us that I guess it's on Route 50 in Saratoga, that it has the 24 parking space geometry or whatever. I haven't had an opportunity to get up there yet.
Yeah.
So if
I
you're
mean,
up
the
that way for
thing-
the track, take a look.
I mean, again, not that my like one example would be, but I was the only car parked in, it was a Sunday afternoon. It was just, all it did is reinforce my perspective of the number seems excessive.
Yeah, it's, I just, friendly polled friends and family about 24 spots and they were like, what are they thinking?
And we asked them for that data. It was one of the open items hey, can you justify, why 24?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what the shoppers are saying, why do you need 24?
Well, no, and it would be helpful to know, like, hey, we got to be, there's limits on time because people are waiting to get in and like,
Yeah, exactly.
there's a
Backs up in the
demand and-
holiday season
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're all full and
yeah.
people are driving around circles waiting to get into a spot. I
Maybe-
doubt that's the case, but I guess we'd like to hear from them,
Maybe they're considering the numbers of people who are actually using it now versus the increasing numbers of customers actually coming into the store. Because I will tell you, I've seen an increase in that.
Right, but I guess the thing is, you would have thought you would have seen it even like we're still kind of coming, I wouldn't say we're out of the woods completely yet. We're kind of near the edge of the forest, but we're not quite. And you thought you would have seen it like there would be that huge demand.
And there hasn't been.
And again, there's also alternative. There's also the whole Instacart model as well too, where people are actually having stuff delivered to their home. This is also a fine model as well. And I think we weren't even talking about they shouldn't have more than 4. I think we were saying, you know what, maybe 12 works okay. And maybe it's a staggered process. We start with 12 and even 12 is not enough. We could come back and expand it again. But 24 just seemed like,
Huge.
yeah.
6X jump in anything is huge.
Yeah.
So, no, but on a serious note, though, I think they really should have a basis for why they're recommending whatever number it is they want to recommend, specific to that store, right?
Yep.
And if it's something that they need to communicate, if it's something proprietary or that they know about what it is they're going to do, and we can cross that bridge. if
Yeah,
it's
maybe
real, but
it could be that they give a discount. You utilize the service, you get 5% off or something like that, or, it's in demand. I don't use it, but,
I mean, the only other thing I wonder to what extent too, and I'm not sure if this works, I'm just literally thinking off the top of my head, is because they have that specific line, that area where you could do it, is there some way you could have like one sign at the front of the aisle, at the front of that front of parking that says, numbered parking spots for pickup or whatever. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
yeah,
And then you don't have that sign pollution. You just have one sign, and that's a better way, and then you don't have that sea of metal.
I think we gave them that feedback,
Yeah.
right? That there was that option, or just reducing the size of the sign,
Yeah.
doubling up on the sign, just trying to minimize signage. Well, try to get there and take a look and.
Yeah, if there is a proprietary reason, they should at least let us know that such a reason exists, and then we can talk from there.
Okay,
Then just the other two updates, there wasn't anything really substantial to put them on the agenda for tonight, but the Kelts Farm project and 1380 Van Antwerp continue to go on with work between the applicant and town staff. So those are moving forward, just they weren't at a point to really come to the planning board tonight.
I have an issue, Kevin. I am in discussions with Mr. Fusco's attorney about the project up here on Knott Street about a construction problem. But his attorney called me and asked about whether the planning board had made a decision about railings or not on the roof. I don't know if there's a final decision, and I talked to Laura, and she thought that it was still being considered.
well, I'll tell you my view of where we're at. If we had a resolution, and the resolution delegated the authority to the planning office regarding the railings.
Okay.
And then Laura, kind of put it out there, and then it kind of escalated, right? First it was, no, we don't like it looks fine without the railings. And then it was like some feedback. Some people like the railings. We should hold them accountable to the railings. And then it was, so kind of create a little bit of turmoil, I guess would be the word. But right now we have a resolution that says the planning office has the authority, whether we like it or not. That's where we stand,
Okay.
So if Laura, feels that, feels that she's empowered and has the right answer from her point of view from the planning office, she can make that decision, or she can kick it back to us again, but that's where it was left off.
Okay.
Right.
I'll take it out of your hands then.
Me, they'd stay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag of, reduce the size, hold it accountable to the original design, but I think we didn't really actually have an original design. That's why it was a condition, the way it was worded. It was,
Okay.
Yeah, he was opposed to adding them from the beginning.
Yep.
And when we did the iterations with his architect, we had some sketches that included roof railings just on the two sides that were on the front and returned to the sides, and then a railing on the center mansard. That was it. But he did not want them from the get-go.
Okay.
Which is, in my mind, is a justification for not having them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
So I guess if, Laura can get back to us again,
If there's a problem, we'll get back to you.
all right. Yeah, because like I said, we have a formal resolution that we passed, giving that authority to the planning office.
I'm guessing he's reaching the point where they would either need to be, if they were to be there, they would need to be constructed now.
Well, the roof is completed. They just have to make penetrations into the roof.
And that was,
They're accessories. That's,
Yeah.
there's nothing, they're decorative, they're accessories. There's nothing there that isn't there that they can't be added if you
Right.
chose to.
Okay,
all right.
so then.
Anything else, Mr. Henry? Any questions regarding any projects for Mr. Henry?
I was curious, just driving by, if you know, Clark, if the greenhouse proposed for Ace Hardware is any closer to coming to fruition.
I know that Laura has had some conversations with that, on that project relative to the status, the relatively unfinished status of that. I don't know if anything specifically has been submitted to the building department on the greenhouse yet. But I know that she's aware, we're aware that there's some work still to be done on that site.
There was availability originally, right, of the materials or something is what the first delay was, or at least,
I believe so.
yeah. And in fact, I just drove through there just to check it out, and looks like there's still some construction activity going on there tonight. It looked like there's cement work going on or something. Yeah, up against the building, the entranceway in the back there, maybe doing repairs. It looks like they're still working on it, But we can have Laura get back to us, on that, or Mr. Henry.
Now, I know no time limit was specified, right? But how long does the developer have to build the plan? In general,
I'm not sure from the planning board's perspective. I believe he has a year once it goes to the building permit stage.
Okay.
but I'm not sure how long he has to complete.
Yeah, no, I know we didn't do anything specific with a
Yeah.
date for this, but I mean, so within general practice, they have a year to get that up.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, COVID-19 updates, anything to discuss there? Are we
No.
pretty much all set? I guess the one thing, conversation we had tonight is that the room will be getting staffed here shortly, hopefully, so we can get back to being able to manipulate the cameras so that we could, do a better job of having things available for the public, like the rendering that's up there tonight. So there's still, trying to staff and get back to normal, I guess, but we'll get there. All right. Anything else, Mr. Henry? No?
No.
All right. All right, how about commission business? Mr. Oster, you have anything?
I'm not going to be at the next meeting, and I actually but I did have a question for Mr. Briggs about any specific lessons learned from like the Costco appellate division case in Guilderland that they overturned the lower court decision, throwing out I don't know if it was the approval, but they basically, the appellate division, I guess, agreed with the planning board, if I recall correctly.
No idea what you're talking about.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it was just in the paper yesterday or
Yeah,
something. It's
okay.
new news, so.
Yeah,
All right.
Costco
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I'll look into it.
Anything else, Mr. Oster?
No.
Mr. DiRapino?
Nothing.
No. Mr. McFarland?
No, nothing.
Mr. Khan?
Nothing.
And Mr. Scrappy Tennis? And Ms. Gold?
nothing.
No? And I have nothing. So it's a quick meeting tonight. Appreciate everybody's support. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McPartlin and seconded by Mr. Oster. How's that? All right, thank you, everybody. And just remember, we're still recording until we get the opportunity to go back and kill that, so.
Yep.
Just so so,
No, that's important.
I think it's important, yes.
Quick, Jeannie, quick.
My phablet is fine for the text documents. It's not good for the maps. My little phablet, fine for the text, not good for the maps.